if you kettlebell snatch twice a week for years, on accident, your VO2 max gets really, really, really good because your VO2 max is based on the pump volume from your heart. Snatch presses diaphragm up, the bottom of the heart becomes more flexible, it expands and contracts more with each pump, which affects your VO2 max. That's a long way of saying you should do a kettlebell snatch program. Men, women, doesn't matter. What we've done over the course of the last several years is work on improving the equipment for this exact thing. And now we have it. We are putting out the snatch program. Kettlebell snatch is one of your most important movements, which is gonna get you to climbing mountains in the least amount of time. A snatch is always a clean and press where you skip the middle. Barbell, kettlebell, dumbbell, sandbag, med ball, whatever. You have a clean and press, which is hard, and that can turn into a clean and jerk. And then we have a snatch, where you go from below the waist to overhead in one smooth movement. Doing this with a kettlebell is probably the most savage, brutal, and insane way to get in shape in the shortest period of time. The kettlebell snatch does something different than every other type of snatch. It involves what's called a Valsalva maneuver. Basically, because you're using a kettlebell in one hand, when you load the bottom, you're twisting your core. That is firing your transverse abdominis, that exact same muscle that they talk about in Pilates, but we're doing it starting with a lightweight and we build up to a heavyweight. The heavier the kettlebell, the harder your transverse abdominis fires. If you have back pain, this tends to correct back pain forever. It becomes hip snap, transverse abdominal load, going from the bottom to the top. And when you hit the top of the snatch, something called the Valsalva maneuver happens. Think of your core like a box. As a front, your six-pack side, your back, the side that almost everybody has is up, left and right, and then top and bottom. The box has a top and a bottom, pelvic floor and diaphragm. When you hit the top, the kettlebell is trying to rip you in half this way, backwards. So your core crunches down to stop it from being ripped in half. When this happens, your diaphragm pushes up into the bottom side of your heart, and it makes your heart itself more flexible. This is why the single arm kettlebell snatch is absolutely insane for building people's ability to jump into super hardcore types of training. We have a Mark 1, a Mark 2, and a Mark 3 kettlebell because we're never done trying to make solutions even better. The problem was we used to have an 8K, a 12K, a 16K, a 24K, and a 32K. That meant it was either too light or too heavy for most people. And you had to do all kinds of crazy math to create programs that were really hard to follow in order to make this doable. We got some fill-in weights. We got a 20K, we got a 28K. Not good enough for a multi-year program. So we originally designed a kettlebell with bells of steel. We call it the Mark 1. It goes from 12 to 32K. Adjustable kettlebells existed before us, but they had 19 weight increments in them. We made more weight increments so we can run the program more times. With the Mark 1 kettlebell, you can run it 41 times. 12, 12 and a half, 13, 13 and a half, 14, 14 and a half, all the way to 32. That's crazy. That means you can legitimately run a snatch program twice a week, starting with a lightweight so you don't die, and letting your body perfectly adapt over time. There was a problem. There weren't weights for the ladies. So with bells of steel, we made the Mark 2. It's a little confusing because the 2 is actually the lighter bell, but it's the one that came out second. 6K, 7K, 8K, 9K, 10K, 11K, 12K. That means ladies can start the snatch program and they can run it 7 times before they get to the Mark 1. And then they can go to 12 and a half K, 13, 13 and a half K, 14, which means perfect training. That's what we're always looking for, equipment and programming to create perfect programs that allow you to get better for years and create permanent adaptation. And then we teamed up with Hephaestus Athletica because I wanted an even better, even crazier solution. We made a kettlebell that goes to 40K, which is nuts, absolutely bonkers. And there can be 16 if you do half K, or 32 more cycles from 32K to 40K. For reference, 40K is 88 pounds. If you can do a snatch program with that, where we're hitting our numbers of 200 reps in 20 minutes, it's a little slower in our structured program because we're looking for a specific type of adaptation. That's nuts. That's nuts. People used to max out at 32K because there was no economically viable way to get above 32K. It went 32K, 40K, which was insane. Nobody could make that jump. 1 out of 10,000 people were strong enough to make that jump. And it meant that they already had an absolute ton of training, probably Olympic lifting if they were gonna survive that. What we did was we made a bell that allows everybody, the other 99.99% of the population, to hunt this snatch goal. The bells above 32K don't exist. There is no 33. There is no 33 and a half. There's no 35. There is a 36. They're super hard to find. They cost $500 a piece. There's no 37. There's no 38. There's no 39. Now they all exist in one place. So, snatch program, run it, because it's gonna make your life way, way better. Your VO2 max is gonna get stronger. Side effect is abs. You're building an engine for anything. And now, new equipment. Young, old, injured, superstar athlete, right? Think a 40K snatch for 200 reps in 20 minutes. It's like NFL level. So we can all look for that now. Let's do it. Let's go train.